Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forums. Join the C-Suite Talks, a LinkedIn event, episode 174. Today, we are having a discussion on the topic of future strategies for a dynamic leadership in rapidly changing world. To have this topic discussed, we have the honor of having Mr. Raj Dogra, Chief Information Officer at upGrad. Without further ado, let's welcome our esteemed speaker to our podcast event. Hi, Raj.
Hi,
Good
Prem.
evening.
Yes, I can.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. Raj, a small intro about yourself and your journey over the years and uh, for the audience's benefit. Yeah.
Sure. My name is Raj Dogra. I work as a CIO for upGrad. I have about 16 years of experience now and worked in multiple organizations in the past, led multiple projects related to automation, security, compliance. Had the privilege of working with one of the great minds in the last 16 years. As far as our company is concerned, we're a skill development, workforce development organization. We've been in existence for about 10 years and we cater to working professionals where we offer them multiple courses, whether it's short-term boot camps or diplomas, degrees. That's a short intro about me and my organization.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Raj. We'll jump into the topic and see. I think we're talking about a pointer where we need to look at today. Leadership requires a blend of adaptability and empathy. And while we embrace empathy, uh, to transform the major people in the organization, what challenges do you see, and what are into this as an opportunity?
I think adaptability and empathy both are really important. Let me quickly give you a story. Something which I've experienced in my career. That'll give more clarity. So a few years ago, I was working with an organization where we were providing global tech support, and we had one of the teams who was managing a client tech support. It was a UK based law firm, and somehow things didn't work out so well, and they wanted to opt out of the support. My country head comes to me and he tells me, "Hey, we have this opportunity to take over the support, convert us from a cost center to a profit center. Would you be interested?" And I was like, yeah, why not? What's the worst thing? We might fail, but we want to try. And we were given about a week's time to turn this around and start supporting them. Now, in the first week itself, when we started, we got multiple complaints coming in from the client, and these complaints had two things primarily mentioned. One was that our people couldn't understand the accent because we had customers coming, those law firm had users coming in from different part of UK. And the second was that our communication style was a little different. So for example, if people were telling them, "Hey, I will come back to you in 30 minutes," they expected within 30 minutes, not like after 1 hour or 2 hours. So that created a little bit of challenge in the communication as well. Other was, of course, we had less time, so we had limited technical skills about that client's infrastructure as well. And then on the other side, the side which I had from my team, where they felt that, hey, we're not trained to manage such customers. We don't understand this accent, and it becomes a little difficult for us to, at times, to even know what was the name of the person. So, of course, we designed a plan, worked with both, worked with the client first, understood their problems, what were they concerned about. As I said, the three things primarily mentioned, worked with the director of their side, and then, of course, the VP and director and the supervisor as well. We understood what were the things we need to focus on. So we did trainings first. We ensured that there were processes which were built and people were very clear what to do in case of a situation where they don't have a solution available, and how do we ensure that uh, we can take care of all the concerns coming in from the client. Other than that, the other thing which was done for the team, because we wanted to make sure that it's while we were trying to adapt to the situation, we wanted to keep the empathy part as well. While we took care of the customer where or the client where we spoke to them, understood their concerns, but we also wanted to make sure the team doesn't feel like, hey, you're pushing us to a situation where we are not trained enough. So we did the training. We even tried doing voice and accent training for our team to ensure that they can understand the accent well. And then, of course, if they had situations where they couldn't, they could reach out to me or somebody else as well to ensure that we are able to answer to our client. Now, the same client who wanted to move out of our support, they signed up the contract with us, and then went ahead. We went ahead with that support for 3 years. And in in the first month of our tech support, which we were giving them, we got about 3 to 4 kudos, the emails coming in from client, and they came from partners. So that was a big deal for us, and that was like a turnaround which happened, and one of the memorable ones in my career, where something which was trying to get out of our hand, we were able to control it, and we were able to ensure that we can manage a customer expectations as well. So I think adaptability and empathy are really, really important in today's world as well, when things are changing so fast. Um, yeah, that's what I would say.
I think you have told a very important point. Now, uh, empathy brings out a lot of things out of a team, right? And that way we fail, or we may not have certain commitments adhered. But if you give an empathy to people who have tried and failed, will give you a different surprises. I think that is one way of looking at empathetic leadership. I think that's one thing that I would like to take. Now, being in this piece, how do we look at navigating tension between the data strategies and maintaining a human centric approach when we take decisions, which is very critical for us, right? So how do we look at that, Raj?
Well, I think decision making or data driven decision making is an important thing, because it helps you to ensure that you could get some insights before a decision is made. But I think there are some of the things which are very, very important while making decisions, because it would impact either individuals or teams or the company itself. The first thing which, I mean, I have learned, it may or may not work for other people, but I think one is look at the problem first. Understand the context of the problem, what the problem is, who are the people involved, like who are the teams or people who are involved. Understand their side as well. Because just jumping onto data may or may not be the best approach. While data can help you to make a decision, the second part is it is also important to know the source of the data, like where the data is coming from. Now, it is quite possible that, because when you're taking a system driven data decisions, the system doesn't make decision on its own. There is an input which goes to the system. So, and that's how you get an output. So it's important that the data which is going into the system is that unbiased. Because if you look at Gen AI models nowadays, where we talk about, hey, Gen AI can do wonders for us, but again, it is dependent on the inputs. It's very, very important. So that's the second part. Third is that we also need to ensure that we understand the impact of the decision as well. Let me give you an example now. For example, when you're making a decision and if people are not really sure what is the context of that decision, it could backfire as well. While the intent could be great, for example, let's say you're trying to automate something, and some email goes to people saying, "Hey, we're automating something," without a context. Why are we doing what we're doing? It could create some sort of panic as well. Are we going to lose our jobs, or what is happening? Why are we doing this? I mean, I think letting people know what are we trying to change, why this decision is being made, and what is the rationale behind it, it's important. Because of course in the end it will impact people only. And I think the last thing which is also important while making any data driven decisions is having some sort of feedback loop as well. While as leaders, I mean, it is quite possible that we make a decision and we may or may not even receive a feedback. So encouraging people that, hey, if you have anything, please share it with us, so that we can analyze that feedback and ensure that going forward also the decisions which are made are effective and are helping the teams as well as the organization.
I think one point that you said is feedback. I think feedback taken at a positive way can create large impacts, right? So that feedback is very, very important. And There's always been a saying that feedback is the breakfast for champions, right? So
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of difference. I would like to quote an example here with one of my bosses saying that, Prem, while you talk to a banking customer or you get into a customer call with the bank, you have a problem with your account, something there, and you want something to be done. How often do you thank them?
yeah,
Said, I said,
agree.
I've never thought about it. So I said, once your problem is solved, you also don't look at giving a feedback. So
Yeah,
our problems are solved when we call, and when they ask for a feedback, we at times are not very clear. So I think that guy who serviced you needs a feedback. Yeah,
I, I think most of us give feedback when things go wrong.
when things go wrong.
Then
Yeah,
we
and
write
he
strong
also used to
emails.
say one thing, Raj, is that when you give feedback, catch the good things which are happening. People always tend to go and talk about bad things, right? Once you have a small issue listed out, there is a whole world to talk about. And I was reading somewhere one quote which I think I'll bring it up, saying that you need people who appreciate good things. There are a lot of critics available across the world.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's one thing that I was reading through, and which brings up to us to look at, with the industries evolving at the breakneck speed, right? What strategies for staying ahead of the curve and inspiring team to do so? What would be your inputs on that, Raj?
I think staying ahead in this fast evolving industry, of course, requires a combination of continuous learning, strategic foresight, fostering culture of innovation within the teams. I think some of the other points which I want to mention. One is that ensuring that we adopt a mindset of lifelong learning. I mean, at times, what happens is we get into a stage where we feel like we know everything,
Yeah.
and that's where the downfall starts. So ensuring that we understand the trends, whether it's related to technology, whether it's related to any other skill, if we continue to upgrade, we stay relevant. And of course, not only relevant, but it ensures that we're learning something new. I mean, if we look at 10 years ago, how some of the technologies did not exist and now they are there. If we continue to go back 10 years only and say, okay, you know what, I knew this and this is all I'm going to do, then it's not going to work. So that's one. Second is that embedding a innovation culture where we encourage risk taking and
Mm.
reward the creativity as well. I mean, a lot of our organizations, I mean, could be subjective, but I think at times we punish people who are trying to do something new and hasn't worked well. So instead of that, if we can reward them, that's going to be more helpful. I mean, I was thinking about this question and I was thinking, what could be the best examples like which I could quote, and I couldn't think other than Elon Musk. And I'm sure that everyone would agree to this, that the kind of thought process, the kind of innovation this one individual is bringing to the world is it's insane. I mean, look at, nobody thought that okay, you could have a rocket which you could reuse, and he
Yeah.
did that. Nobody thought that you could have maybe an electric car. It's going to be much better than the conventional cars. So I think if we start, I would say, appreciating, rewarding innovation, it is going to help a lot. I mean, everyone knows some or other things, and if they can innovate something new out of
I'll
it, it's
take
going to be
one
really helpful.
example here.
Yeah,
I'll take one example here. I think this goes back to Wright brothers stuff when
yeah,
they
yeah,
took the flight, right?
yeah,
There were two things that I learned in one of the books, where what I understood was, when the Wright brothers took a flight, it had a flight of 18 seconds. 18 seconds or 18, I'm not sure about the right time. It is 18 something, right? So
yeah,
I'll keep it that way. And there was another team which had a larger funding, about $1 lakh or something like that, and they were trying to do. The whole crowd was there looking at what they would bring, because that was the biggest investment. And these guys, this bicycle guys, mechanics, I think, and these people had no crowd where they were testing, but when you looked at 18 minutes flight mattered for them to show
Yeah,
that they were able to do a simulation of flight going for 18 seconds. That gave them confidence, but the other side, the experiment failed. And that I think that's what I'm relating to what you are saying is
yeah,
more on the pointers that we should appreciate the good things, and it is not always jazzy that works. It sometimes the
agree.
politics works as well, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing which could be that we align our goal with some purpose. I mean, if I talk about our organization, our goal is learners' outcome. I mean,
Yeah.
if our learners are coming to our platform, I mean, while they have so many other choices, we appreciate that they're coming to us,
Yes.
and of course they're coming with certain outcomes in mind. And our objective is, our goal is to ensure that they get those, because then only we are able to assist them with their purpose. Otherwise, I mean, there are so many other companies could offer the same courses or same programs to them. Yeah, I think these are some of the things which I would say that are really required.
Yeah.
As far as staying ahead of the curve is concerned.
Yeah. So coming to the next point that I want to understand is what uh, can we do at leadership when a misstep taught you a profound lesson by the team? What could be the dynamics, or what could be their innovation?
I think it will be. I will be acting as an ideal person if I say that, oh, I have never made any mistakes over the
I
period
don't think
over the
so.
year.
We
So
are
yeah,
eligible
yeah.
to say that we did not make mistakes,
So
right? So every mistake has
yeah.
its cost, and based on which we are here today, right? So yeah, agree. Yeah, go ahead.
So, of course, as you grow, and because decision making is a behavioral skill, you learn over the period of time. While
Yeah,
we could go through MBA's books or some other books and try and understand concepts or frameworks, but in the end, how much is practically possible is subjective to the situation itself, and of course, the people around us or the environment. So, of course, made multiple mistakes and learned a lot. And I think one of the things which in the last 16 years, which I've learned, and I would want to share that, is be your best critic. I mean, you don't need multiple other people to tell you. You should be the first person to know when you have screwed up.
self criticism.
Yeah. So if you are someone who's analyzing yourself, being very brutally honest, I think that's the best thing you could do for yourself. So
Yeah, one of
I would agree that
yeah, I agree with
that
one of my bosses. I used to write mails lessons. It used to be a lesson that I used. I to convey one point. I used to write a lesson. My boss said, "कहानी क्यों लिख रहा है?" And I said, "उसको समझने में आना चाहिए ना सर." Then he
yeah,
said, "वो समझेगा या नहीं समझेगा, वो लिखने के बाद स्टोरी तो नहीं पड़ेगा. That is for sure."
agree.
तो आपको ये लिखना है, क्या चाहिए, क्यों चाहिए, कब चाहिए, तीन चीजें लिखो. Then I said, okay. And he used to say, when you write that mail, write it to yourself. If somebody is writing to yourself,
Yeah,
then you will not write a rude language. You will not use any words that you feel you don't want to hear. So he
yeah,
used to say, treat yourself the way you want others to treat you, or treat others the way you want to get treated, right?
yeah.
So
Agree.
that's the point he used to bring. Now that is a very important thing that I have learned from my past. Coming to that point, you said about something about frameworks. I just want to take some pointers where frameworks.
Before
Yeah,
you go to the framework, let me give you an example as well of.
sure,
I mean,
sure.
since we were talking about examples too, that some of the missteps, and there could be numerous, and one of them, which I could tell you right now, is that in the last 15, 16 years of my career, I've been involved in setting up global support multiple times. And I think one of the things which I experienced once is that, you're setting up a global support. I was setting up a global support for, about 3 to 4 continents. And so, of course, we hired people, interviewed, trained them on processes, trained them on technical skills and everything else. And then, of course, then post that, I couldn't really spend much time. After some time, I get to hear some feedback from people that, hey, you know what, I don't want to work with this person, that person. Now think of it that This is a globally spread team, and if they're not ready to work with each other, it's going to be a big problem because they may or may not meet ever physically, even in the setup. So what I realized is that while it was great that we did some induction, we did some training, we did whatever was required to get started, but post that, that's it. I mean, post that we did not really think of this element that hey, these are different cultures, these are different countries. The interpretation of certain words or sentences could be so different that the whole understanding or the way people look at each other could be very very different. So of course, mistake was made, corrected it by ensuring that we do more and more engagement within the team so that they understand each other's culture. Tried ensuring if people can meet each other as well in some or other ways. Then also ensuring that they have given them some projects which they can collaborate so that they can share more and more understanding of each other, not only each other, but of course the topics or the projects they're working on. So that helped a lot, ensuring that people don't feel like, hey, you're sitting in India running a team which is global. Maybe you're giving a preferential treatment to people in India, but not to others. So wanted to make sure that it's a team which is not like it's not a politics which we're trying to politicians which we're trying to create, but more like very very cohesive team. So yeah, that happened.
Yeah, great about. I just wanted to look at your perspective on frameworks or practices that you have found most effective for cultivating out of box thinking in your team, because you made a point right sometime back in the previous question saying that we had global teams. Now, what brought them together is what I want to understand, because it is more related to the framework and the practices we follow to bring a team which is spread across, right?
I think whether it's the creativity, whether it's innovation, whether it's anything else which we want to create and which we want to bring into the team, the most critical thing which according to me, and I've experienced this for many years now, is the environment. If
Hmm.
you create an environment which supports creativity, which encourages people to try new things, which tells them, hey, don't stop yourself, go ahead, try innovation. The worst thing which could happen is failure. That's it. I mean, there's nothing else. But if we don't try, by default we have already failed. So I think that was one. Environment is critical. So encouraging people to try something new, that kind of a culture is very, very important because we all, when we maybe at times when we are at a certain position, it could be easy for us to say that. But when people are growing, it may be difficult because they're concerned, scared, or maybe they feel like, hey, what if I fail? What would happen in
I,
that?
I completely agree with you in terms of what we fear to talk, right? Whether if I voice out my opinions. You
Yeah,
made a very important point saying that as we grow as leaders, now we understand why we should have told no to many of the instances where we accepted and said yes and we failed.
yeah.
And that eventually brought us something to learn, but that fear carried out us not to say no, and we proceeded on some things where we failed eventually, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's what I reflect back when I take back my years when I did a lot of things hands on and stuff like. In your experience, what is the most underestimated leadership skill that has a major impact on the organizational culture?
Without a doubt, it's going to be empathy. So I think the way things are nowadays, where things are very, very fast, people want instant gratification, leaders want results, investors want money to be doubled or tripled, or their investments to be
Stocks to
doubled.
be doubled in
Yeah,
overnight
yeah.
and you become a
I, I,
multi.
I think somewhere what we're missing is that in the end, it's the human who are doing the work. We all are the people who are doing the work.
I
And
used to recall one thing, Raj.
yeah,
I'm putting, you are giving me insights to talk more about it, actually speaking,
sure.
right? Rather than, while I was doing a banking project, and we used to do a lot of banking projects in my Wipro days. Okay, I was in
Mhm.
Wipro for a very long time. So I used to handle a lot of banking projects. When the ATMs came in and we used to get money quick, there used to be one slogan saying, "Hey boss, ATMs have come. Doesn't mean projects will get delivered so fast, right? So you are getting cash only." The project still takes time to get matured. The ATMs have come after most of the challenging situations they faced. The ATMs did not work, cash got torn, and stuff like that. Today, when you are getting cash just like that, there is a lot of work that has gone behind to get you that facility. So, appreciate the work that has been done on the back ends, right?
Agreed.
So, from a learning platforms like yours on upgrad and stuff, right? So, there's a lot of curation that happens over the course content, the kind of material that has to go in, how do you catch the audience and stuff like that. Now, going through that, leading through that disruption can be daunting, right? Can you share a story where you embraced and turned out to be a pivotal success on what you've been doing on the learning industry in specific?
I think there have been many situations where, where there were doubts, they were concerned that whether something is going to work or not work. I can give you some examples, like, and I'm sure that these kind of things are experienced by majority of the CIOs or CTOs when they're trying to move from one service to another service. For example, one of the conventional one is moving from on-premise infra to a cloud one. I mean, we've experienced it as well when moving email services from an on-premise to a cloud one or a SaaS one. Um, where people felt like, hey, everything is working great. We don't want a disruption. What if this doesn't happen? What if we don't have a backup? What if my services are down? How would it work? So I think many years ago, when for the first time we moved to Office 365 in one of the organizations, we were running exchange services, and there were a lot of doubts that would it really work or not. Fortunately, it worked. Of course, because a lot of people worked on this project and they all put in a lot of hard work. And when we moved, people started seeing the results. I mean, things were very, very smooth. You could use Teams at that time, do collaboration. We started having town halls or client meetings using that, even telephony as well. Other was automation, where you're trying to automate stuff like your procurement or your PO processes. And there was a lot of resistance from people that, hey, do we really need to do this? Because they were comfortable with this. Hey, you know what? There is a paper which gets signed by somebody, and then that's how things should work. But then, of course, when we automated with certain checkpoints like who are the approvers, how the automatic routing of the POs are going to be, and then it made everything so easy. And then, of course, people started seeing results. Other could be, I mean, I've seen ERP moving from on-premise to cloud, or LMS moving from cloud to on-premise as well. So that has also happened, because cost optimization are some of the other aspects which we were looking at. There were multiple such situations where people doubted that is this really going to work? I mean, but yeah, of course, I mean, when you're putting efforts and you have a strong project management in place, it I don't think so there will be any challenges.
Now, coming to that point, during the times of uncertainty, while keeping the vision intact, how do you build resilience in your team?
I think in today's world, resiliency is really required. I mean, things are unpredictable. Things could go south, and you got to make sure that you are strong enough to manage things. As leaders, one is, of course, to communicate the vision very, very clearly and consistently as well. I'm just making it up. Let's assume that as an organization, we want to impact 1 million learners. We want to make sure that we can make their lives better.
Okay.
Now, if we say it once, doesn't mean that people are going to be like, yeah, we all are aligned. We need to break it down. Every team, what does that mean to them? Like, what does it mean to tech, engineering, IT, or maybe sales, marketing? What all it means to them? And it's not going to be something which we need to say once. We need to say it every time so that it becomes like their personality. It's like it becomes a cohesive part of their personality, so that they're living it every day. That is one part. The second is fostering the culture of transparency. I mean, at times what happens is that when people are being very, very transparent, or very, very straightforward, they could be considered or construed rude as well. But I think it's important that we say what needs to be said, and we keep people informed, because transparency means trust. If we can trust each other, I'm sure we can do better work. If we can't trust each other, I don't think so that it would work for a long time. Other thing is empowering teams to have the ownership. I mean, back in days when we were kids, I mean, think of it that our parents used to give us some task. Hey, you are in charge of this, and you would ensure that that thing gets done effectively on time. I mean, think of schools as well. Like somebody who gets selected as a monitor, you're supposed to manage the class, and we would do it. Why? Because we thought this is our ownership. Similarly, it's required in job as well. Like it's not about, oh yeah, the CIO owns IT, or this CEO owns the every decision which needs to be made for the company. I think it's important for people to start really realizing that whatever work is being given to them, it's their own. They need to own it. I think, of course, while it's important that we also provide training resources to people so that they're able to do what needs to be done, and again, having empathy towards people if they're making mistakes. Of course, coach them, teach them, to ensure that they can correct themselves. But it shouldn't be like creating a funness for them to work in an environment that may not help them.
Then managing transformations in the fast-paced environment, right? Can you avoid pitfalls?
Yeah, but
Are
look,
there any common ones you want to speak about?
so I think when in a company which is a high growth organization or a startup, I think in those companies, because they want to make sure that they can have a competitive edge and make decisions faster and move things faster, for any high growth or a startup, as compared to any old organizations or something which is like a very mature organization. One is about having a clear vision. It's very, very important the leader knows what he or she is trying to do, so that they can communicate the same to the teams as well. That's one. The second part is, at times we make decisions, and if these are globally spread teams, not understanding the culture or the people mindset could create a challenge for us. Because, for example, as quoted a couple of examples earlier as well about global teams, I think it's important to understand the culture of the company, and of course people as well, so that we can make right decisions. Third is, at times, because the leader wants to prove themselves that, hey, I can do very well, we promise too much, and then it becomes like a overwhelming situation for the teams now, because they need to deliver. So I think keeping a balance there, that where you're trying to push people out of their comfort, but that push has to be over the period of time. Like you slightly keep pushing, and then over the period of time they will reach there where we want them to reach. Other than that, I would say not having clear KPIs could also cause a problem. So that could be another thing. While we know what we want to achieve, but what would be the measure here? Like I could say, hey, I want to make things better for people, but what does that mean? Like, what is the measure of it? Is there any measure? Because having clear KPIs will be very helpful. Other than that, I think if feedbacks get ignored by leaders, that could also be bigger problems. I think these are some of the things which are the pitfalls for a leader, and ensuring that they take care of all these, and I'm sure that things will be much better for them as well as their teams.
Now, look, you're speaking about some of the habits or practices we should help the leaders to grow, continue, inspire others in all the career stages, right? So that's what we are talking about. What
Yeah.
would be those practices? Any hints on that?
Yeah, I could talk about the ones which I have followed in my life. So, one is that once you've committed something to people, you must deliver, no matter what are the challenges. I mean, I wouldn't want to go uh, to my peers or my seniors and say, "Hey, here are the 10 reasons why I can't deliver." I want to fix them. That's it. That's my problem, how to fix it. That's one. Second is, trust building is very, very important. As I said earlier, if we can't trust each other, we can't work very well. So trust is very important, and trust comes from transparency and sticking to your commitments. So they're relatable. Third is, being self-driven and self-motivated is very crucial. And I mean, this is my personal thought, that you don't need people to tell you all the time that you're good or you're great at something. If you're a best self critic, you would know where you're doing well and where you're lacking, so that you're not waiting for external motivation to do something. You're just motivated yourself. You know that you have a certain purpose or goal, and you want to achieve that goal, and you don't care what is happening outside. You just continue to focus on that goal. um, Other is that, which is again connected to commitment, which is about ownership. When you take the ownership of something, you ensure that it gets closed. You don't keep pushing it to somebody else that maybe it's not my work, or it's not my job, maybe something else will do it. Other than that, I think empathy is again very very important point, because if you can't understand people very well, are not empathetic towards people, they will not stick around with you no matter what, no matter how much probably compensation they get, or whatever the company is. And last, I would say that feedback. As a leader, listen to the feedback, analyze the feedback. If it's making sense, pick that feedback, work on it. If it's not making sense, it's fine. But at least you'd ensure that you listen to the person. They don't feel like, hey, I'm giving you feedback and you're not listening to it.
Okay, great insights there. How do you balance demands of the leadership with maintaining personal well-being with authenticity?
Um, I think as far as as a leader, it's important that you prioritize your self-care as well. I mean, you take care of yourself, because I think if you're physically, mentally, or emotionally not healthy, it is quite possible that you may end up making irrational decisions as well. So it's important that you put emphasis on that and you practice it. I mean, I know it's not something which is easy when you're doing millions and billions of things, but of course, make sure that you take out time and take care of these three things. The second part is that I wouldn't call it a work-life balance, because I think that concept kind of um, I don't know, according to me, it doesn't work anymore, considering that we're using so much of technology and we are so digital now that we work almost 18, 16, 18 hours a day. So I think having an integration between work life is very, very important, so that you are able to prevent any burnouts. Because as I said, that, as a leader, people are looking up to you. They expect you to be good at something. And remember that, I mean, one of the things I've learned that while you could get suggestions from anyone, but advices would only come from people who have experienced that thing. So you can only advise your team if you have experienced it yourself. Otherwise, you're just giving them gyan, which may or may not really help them. So that's another one. I think other than that, delegating and empowering, is also important, that you share responsibilities with your team members. Delegate, it helps them also to learn something new. It's not about, when they become a manager, then only they need to learn the skills of a manager. I mean, it could be a path which you set for them right from stage one, and ensuring that when they reach to that one, or like stage two, three, four, whatever is the stage for manager position, they have learned all those skills. Because again, these are practical behavioral skills. It'll take some time. They're not going to come overnight. It's not a pill which they take today and then tomorrow they're the best in something. I think some of the other things, like fostering growth mindset, making sure that you're striving to be better, look at opportunities. Don't look at things like a constraint. These could be opportunities, and take your chances. Try whatever possible you could try. I think these are some of the things I
I
would
think one
mention.
question has come from Ravi Ramalingam. I just want to bring it here. So Ravi and myself have worked together in Wipro, long time associate. We've been into the project management piece. So Ravi has fear of failure should be removed at a young age, since this has created a huge roadblock in the people's mindset. I think the question is very valid, Ravi, and thank you for asking that.
I I would agree with that. I think we all can relate to this. I mean, um, I'll give you an example. At times, what happens is that as kids, when we are either we learn by observing things, either it's either it's going to be parents or teachers telling us that, okay, do this, and stay to this level only, or do only this thing, and then that becomes like a like a practice for
I think
kids,
we
and
are
then
creating a blockage, right? Where I think that's what you're trying to say, if I can put
yeah,
it in a difference. And I think we have created a blockade where we say this is what is your limitation, or
yeah,
this is
yeah.
the only. And I think that fear has to be removed, is what I think you and Ravi are saying it as many words as it's possible.
I think, yeah, as kids, when
Yeah.
it comes to kids don't have any fear until they're told about it.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm sure that if we set them free, give them the right guidance, of course they can do much better. So we would agree with what Ravi's observations are.
With the emerging trends and disruptions, should leaders in 2024 prioritize to stay competitive? Now, I think we are moving to 2025. I think that should be the pointer that we should talk about, because we are in the fag end of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a leader, of course, you got to make sure that you are well versed with the new technologies, trends. So, of course, big yes to that. It's required to stay relevant in the industry and to ensure that you continue to upgrade yourself. There are so many technologies available, whether it's about AI powered innovation, where you're ensuring that you're using generative AI to automate stuff, drive efficiency, decision making, personalizing user experiences. I think that's one. Second, it could be personalization itself, where you leverage data analytics and machine learning to deliver tailored, I would say, product services or customer journeys as well. And that could be used for internal teams too. Third is, of course, when you're using more and more technology, you want to make sure that your security is very, very critical. Security and data privacy. So prioritizing, robust security infrastructure, compliance processes in place so that you can protect the data. Other than that, I believe that digital first customer experience, making sure that you invest in omni-channel strategies to ensure that your customer experience is great so that you can get repeat customers as well. Other is embracing agility. So the way things are changing so rapidly, it's important to be highly agile. Of course, making sure that you have you know strong processes, but you're also agile enough to accommodate anything which is coming to you. I would say these are some of the things which are important, and while there could be numerous other things as well.
Yeah, I've come to the final pointer that I want to understand from you, Raj, is from your perspective, what are the technologies that are shaping the way the leaders should connect with motivating their teams to the next decade, and what role does emotional intelligence play in driving innovation?
Okay, so I believe that the way things are changing, where post-COVID teams have started working remotely, there are companies who are fully remote, there are companies which are hybrid. It's important that we look at how technology is going to help us out here. So look at something like having an enhanced communication collaboration tools, which ensures that people are able to interact with each other effectively. Could be AR, could be VR collaboration. This ensures that there are stronger connections, especially people when they're working from different locations, different geographies. That is one. Second is data driven leadership insights, where advanced analytics can be used to ensure that yeah, to ensure that you can understand the data very pretty well. um, I think and sorry if I'm I think your question is more about intelligence, correct? Let me
Emotional
just add.
intelligence also
Yeah,
plays.
let me I just add that as well. So I think the other part is that if as a leader, it's important that we build strong relationships as well, especially because, as I said, that people are working remotely from different locations or different geographies, and having the right tools in place to ensure that they can collaborate very well is very, very important. Then only they can feel connected, and probably they'll be able to get better results. The other could be the empathy part, where if people have different perspectives, then as a leader, we ensure that we listen to those perspectives, we respect those perspectives. Whether we agree disagree, that's a different aspect, but we ensure that we consider those, because in a problem solving these kind of diverse perspectives could be very very useful. Other than that, I think for leader, um, from an emotional intelligence perspective, it's important to recognize if people are getting stressed, the teams are getting stressed or burnouts, because it's, nowadays, considering that when you're working remotely or working from home, we don't really realize we end up spending 15, 16 hours a day sitting on a chair. I mean, I've experienced that. So from my experience in saying this, that understanding if people are feeling the burnouts and ensuring their well-being is very very important, because then only they'll feel valued and motivated enough to work further.
Yeah.
um, I think communication and feedback, again, same, where we ensure that leaders communicate very very constructively when it comes to feedbacks, setting up expectations, and ensuring that the feedback is both motivating and actionable. I mean, as we discussed earlier as well, that while it could be that there are areas for improvement, but if somebody is doing pretty well in something, then we should appreciate that.
Yeah.
And of course, any feedback which is being given, it should be more like an actionable rather than being very very generic, which people may or may not be able to follow. And I think last thing, which especially in a remote setup, which is quite possible, is conflict resolution, because addressing any conflicts, especially when people are working remotely, hybrid, or in different geographies, it's very very important that we use constructive feedback mechanisms, or ensuring that there is a clear communication between the teams while solving any conflicts as well. So assertive communication style is very very important.
Thanks for that, Raj. I would like to summarize on the inputs or the pointers that we have discussed today. We spoke about leadership and vision in a transformative era. We spoke about practical lessons, challenges on dynamic industry leadership there. We spoke about empowering through change, okay, and we spoke more on personal growth, leadership styles, and some of the trends and forward thinking strategies over this 45-minute call. I think very real, very right examples, real time examples, and very insightful. Raj, thank you for being with us. Any last words that you would like to add before we conclude, Raj?
So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I hope this information was useful and helpful to the audience listening to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. With this, I would like to tell the audience about the podcast. This podcast is streamed live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you found this discussion valuable. Thank you for joining us in this LinkedIn live. And our next episode is our 175th episode, which is a kind of a milestone for us. And we are going to talk on a topic with the leadership lens: why teams need reflect growth, is what we are talking on 6:30 p.m. on 26th November. Looking forward to see you there, and good day and bye for now, Raj. Bye. Thank you for being here,
Thank
Raj.
you, everyone. Thank
Thank you.
you.